Okay, so today we'll be discussing on the shared responsibilities and benefits in regenerative forest business between business actors as well as the communities. So in today's rapidly changing world, the intersection between business, society, and environment is more pronounced than ever before. And striking a balance between economic growth, environmental conservation, and community engagement is a pressing challenge to ensure a sustainable future for our next generations. So here we are, ready to explore the power of collaboration between business actors and community initiatives in forest-rich countries, like one of them, of course, are Indonesia. We will also learn some best practices and strategies from existing partnership with a focus on creating replicable models for future collaborations. Furthermore, we will explore approaches and technologies that can enhance the effectiveness and sustainability of business community partnership. Okay, so the discussion will not complete without having a contribution from our keynote speaker. So please join me on stage. Actually, replace me on stage, Pak Dirjen, Pak Agus Justianto.
Distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, a very good afternoon. First, allow me to deliver my highest appreciation, especially to all panelists, speakers, that is Pak Onte, Pak Silverius Oscar Unggul, Director of Indica Nature, Mr. Michael Zrus, Founder and CEO of Lestari Capital, Mr. Philip Vilela, founder of Renature, Ms. Henriette Asiedu, Partnership for Forest West and Central Africa, Mr. Daniel Kofiabu, Tropenbos Ghana, to the moderator of this session, Pak Widar Mika Agung from Systemic IQ Partner, and welcome to all distinguished participants on this session, especially to share responsibilities and benefit in the regenerative forest business between business actors and communities. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, utilization of forest resources can support the achievement of sustainable development goals. Forestry development must be guided by three pillars of sustainable development, that is ecologically sustainable, economically feasible, and socially accepted. One indicator of the success of forest management is the prosperity of the people living around the forest. It is very important to identify the existence and needs of the community in order to reorganize community rights and access to utilize forest resources. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, community involvement in forest use can be carried out through several schemes, that is, permits or approval for forest utilization, partnership, and cooperation. Through permits or approval for forest utilization, communities can manage and utilize the given area. Of course, the government must provide to facilitate the granting of permit or approval for forest utilization. Forest utilization policies by the community must also be prepared to suit the community abilities and capacities. Meanwhile, partnership and cooperation schemes are carried out jointly between the community and the business license owner. Cooperation and partnership are a long-term relationship between two parties for a common goal. Therefore, it must fulfill the principle of mutual respect, mutual contribution, mutual benefit, and equality. Implementation of cooperation and partnerships can be carried out in various forms, that is, investment in shares, business cooperation in business activity segments, off-taker, buying and selling, support small businesses through training, education, and research, regional economic development, agroforestry. The Indonesian government has changed the forest management paradigm from initially focusing on wood utilization activities to landscape-based forest management to optimize forest areas and optimize forest products through forestry multi-businesses. The policy will encourage forest farmers to develop superior local products. Forestry multi-businesses policies, cooperation and partnership will support the regenerative forest business, an effort to encourage strengthening the implementation of sustainable forest management activities through multi-product business integration, including goods and services produced from the agroforestry system, utilization of environmental services and non-timber forest products to increase the added value of the role of forestry businesses. Collaboration between the government, business actors, and their community in forest utilization activities will provide benefits, conflict prevention and resolution, and then maintain forest cover, optimization of forest areas and forest products, improve product quality, overcoming the problem of limited capital, technology, and market. So it will have an impact on forest sustainability and improving community welfare. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude my remark, I hope from this panel discussion session we could learn the best practices from existing partnerships, inspire engagement between the collaborating parties, explore innovative approaches and technologies that can enhance the effectiveness and sustainability of business community partnership. I wish you all to have a fruitful discussion. I thank you.
Thank you, Pak Agus Jus, for the keynote. Let's be ready to learn from each other today. So, because we have a big panel today, let's start off by inviting our moderator. He's the systemic partner, Widarmika Agung. Please join me on stage. Thank you. So, because we have a big panel today.
The mic? Can everybody hear me? Okay. Thank you, Pak Agusius, for the excellent keynote. Thank you for reminding us that, community is central when we try to protect the forest. Thank you also remind us that, it has to be done in a long-term partnership mode that requires mutual respect, and that the government of Indonesia is also facilitating the right regulation, that is the multi-use business license that allows such partnership between community and the business happens and in such. So thank you so much, Pak Agus, and thank you, Mona, for opening our session today. Hello, everyone. Hope, it's really me and the panels between you and lunch. So, and this is the 10th day of COP. But, I will reassure you this is an excellent session. We will have a lot of 5 panelists and a lot of learnings on communities, working with businesses to scale regenerative approach. So to start with, right, when, how many of you have read the book Jared Diamond, Guns, Germs, and Steel? Oh, have Ruth. Okay, 1. Represent a lot, right? I assume 10. So, no, I think, to start with why the book. I remember when I'm reading the title of the sessions that talks about communities and collaboration with business, the book at the openings, it shares, a question of who's smarter. Is it someone from, big cities such as New York, or indigenous people from the heart of Papua, right? I think the writer posed that questions. And then he said, it depends, right? But if you look at it, right, if you put someone from a big city in the heart of Papua, right, the person might not survive a day, right? Because they don't have a knowledge to survive in the heart of Papua, in the heart of forest. Whereas probably if you put someone from, indigenous people from the heart of Papua in, say, city like Jakarta, he will likely be, able to survive. So I think it brings us to perspective when we think about investing in nature, working in nature. It's very important to work with the community because they really do have the knowledge and the incentive to really do that properly. So I think just at the beginning, and today we have 5 panelists, right? All of them have worked very closely with communities in trying to scale regenerative approaches. So let me call the panels. We start with Pak Onte, Silverius Oscar Unggul. So Pak Onte, please, I think you can take. So Pak Onte is the director from Indica Nature. And Indica Nature is the arm of Indica Energy that focus on nature-based businesses. And he will share more about Indica Nature's approach in working with communities. And then I would love to ask Mike Surs, please, to come to the stage. Mike is the co-founders and also CEO of Lestari Capital, right? A pioneering company that helps companies to invest in nature-based business, nature outcomes, right? And we'll hear more from Mike. And then I would like to invite, of course, Felipe, please. Round of applause, I think. Thank you, Bu Isabella. Felipe is from the Land Bank Group, right? I think last year also get an opportunity to share with us about his experience with Renature, but now with the Land Bank Group, I think happy to have you with us today. And I think we have, and then I would love to invite Henrietta Asiadu from Partnership for Forest West and Central Africa. It's really a pleasure to have you, right? Here with us, providing a different perspective from Africa as well as also from gender perspective as well. So, and then we don't have Madam Mercy from Tropenpos, but we have Daniel Kofi Abu, right, with us. Please, if you can come to the stage. Tropenpos have kind of worked for almost 40 years, right, trying to progress the vision of a more inclusive economy that is central around communities in around the forest. Thank you for being with us. So great. We will conduct the session in Bahasa. Just since we started Pak Onte, no, just kidding. So Pak Onte, I think great to have you with us. And if we can start our kind of session by sharing with us what is Indica Natures for the audience, so that what is Indica Natures, and also share with us what is unique about Indica's nature approach in working with communities that set you apart from other businesses. Please, over to you, Pak Onte.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Indica Nature is a part of Indica Energy. We are doing the natural-based solution for transformation of Indica Energy. And with Indica Nature, we're doing 3 things. First, we're doing the energy plantation. Second, we're doing the environmental services. And also, we're doing agroforestry. In terms of doing these 3 activities, we're working in our concession, and we're working with people in social forestry license or in people smallholders on land. So this is Indica Nature. So the community is very important for us because we are not doing like we're doing our business, and then if we have profit and then we go to the community. No. But the community is the part of our business. First we think working with community will give us social license to operate, but we're wrong. Because we working with community, doing us more benefit. Our company, I think, will save many things with working with community. I give you one example. Before, when we built the road in our concession, we must pay, in rupiah, maybe in US dollar, maybe 100 1,000 US dollars every 2 kilometers. But when we go gotong royong in English, what you call gotong royong?
Collaboration.
Working together.
Working together.
Working together. Collaborate with community, with 3 village. We build road for 29 kilometers. Only put maybe only 5,000 US dollars. It's very effective. And then after that, the people surrounding us protect this land, protect this road for illegal activity. Which is illegal activity, it's very difficult for us in the beginning. Illegal logging, illegal mining and everything. But because we built road together with people, they protect this road and then they not allow any illegal activity to come. This is very good for us. So I think for the company, for us, especially for us, the company, the people is the part of our business. Not only for social license for operate, but also because we will get more benefit because working with the community.
Okay, no, thank you, Paunte. Very powerful. So working with community is not only to get the social license, right? But the community is really a core part of the business, yes. Right? So, Paunte, I think I'm fully aware, right? I think you are, your starting point was you are an environmental activist at one point, social entrepreneur, at one point on the entertainment industry as well, setting up the community-based TV and Kendari, right? You've been to some extent the other side, but now you are working on with a corporate, right? A corporate, Indica Energy is an energy companies, right? So, and your approach can be seen quite innovative, quite new. If you can share kind of your learning working within kind of corporate organizations, business leaders in Indica, what kind of mindset shift that is needed to allow the company to work as you have described?
I think first of all, because we can show, we can make a proof working with community, with make company more efficient. You can imagine if you tackle illegal logging, illegal mining by yourself, it's very expensive. But working with the community, we can show to my friends, because they come from like people from businesses, they can show the money. Yeah. Oh, yeah, more cheap, more efficient. It's good. And I think I appreciate to the founder, the leaders in Indica Energy, because they have a strong vision. We must do with community. We want to make it right in the beginning, not for service or something like that. No, right. That's why he invite me, invite Ibu Bella, invite others from not from business, pure businesses, come. And I remember at the time Pak Arsad and Pak Aji say, they are our leaders, yeah. They say, if we do the transformation with the resources inside Indica Energy, maybe we can, but take time. We need someone from other perspective to come to together with us to transform, to lead the transformation. And we believe the combination of expertise come from us and come from outside will make us move faster and right within the connection with the people, with the community.
So commitment from the top leadership is key to drive these things forward. Now, you know, from high level going to the grassroots, right? At the community level, at one of your kind of concessions areas, Paunte, you know, can you share what does, you know, how you operationalize those community approach? What does, you know, if you can tell, you know, when you say work with community, how does it really look like on the ground, your team, the community, how does it really look like? If you, so that, you know, especially those things that you believe is, you know, you found as a key success factors, and hopefully the audience can learn from it and adapt and scale it further, right? If you can share, it will be very valuable. Thanks, Paunte.
I think first, we want to win the heart of the people. That's why we merombak, we transform the way company come. Before the company have a like a big office, mess, apa mess, yeah,
Camp.
camp, very exclusive in the one place, and you do all the things there. But when we come, not used like this. Our camp is small, but spread to the whole village. And our people stay there. They act like a people there. They go to the mosque together. Sometimes they make a speech in the mosque. They go to the market together. So we want to won their heart first. And then we work together. Yeah. And if after that we can easily to get the support to do the regenerative businesses. We plan what they want to plan together. But again, must fit with the regulation of the Indonesian government. Yeah. So we start from that. Slow, but we believe this will be very good for us. And I think, and the states I want to thank to Pak Agus and team in KLHK who support us. So we try to make these things maybe new in the RKU, yeah, the document for our planning. And then yeah, KLHK approved that. So we can, of course we do good, we do with people, we include NGO together, but without government to support us, I think it's nothing. So this is good, yeah, good for lesson learned, and we move, and I think the way we work with people is the key. Also, I want to explain one more about the monitoring system. We have Mului with NGO, Padi, friends there, and then Mului. They have the monitoring system for the forest. Now, we want to talk and we want to adopt the system. But our security monitoring system will adopt there, and we ask them to lead us about this monitoring system. Why not? They lead us, our team. And I told my team, we are the part of this team together with Mului, but they will lead us. Because they know the forest, right? They know exactly what happened in the forest. So this is quite new, but I think we still have our people, yeah, to do the security of the forest. But in the team, we try to lead by the people also.
Oh, thank you. It's fascinating, right? I think round of applause for Paonte. It's really fascinating to see, like, it's you bring the examples really in practical manners, right? Whereby you kind of recognize that the communities knows very well the landscape, right? So the Mului examples. And you also kind of want to bring the companies to stay closer with the community by staying with the communities and, take part in their daily routines. And that will further kind of influence the way the whole organization works, and therefore build trust for further collaborations, right? And congratulations as well for the approval for the multi-use business license. I think it's a great example of collaborations between the government, right policies, and then private sectors trying to move that forward. So thank you so much, Paonte. So going to our next panel is Michael. Apa kabar, Michael?
Baik, Pak. Makasih banyak.
Michael can speak bahasa, so that's why I start with apa kabar.
Like me, I know English too.
Yeah, like, after a while, yeah, like, Paonte knows English, Michael can speak bahasa. So should we just try in bahasa with Michael, who agree? Like,
Whoa, yeah.
So, no, yeah, so Michael, it's great to be here with you. And, always a pleasure to talk about Lestari Capital. I have a very special place in my heart, Lestari Capital, as you know. But probably the audience would know more about Lestari Capital. So could you share a little bit about what is it that you do in Lestari Capitals? What kind of problems you're trying to solve, and how the community is plays a role in your model, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Michael Roest. I'm a founder of Lestari Capital. We started actually our company in 2017. We are now in Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia. And I think if you ask me what is the ultimate vision about what is the ultimate purpose of Lestari Capital, it's really to recognize the fact that actually conservation, restoration, livelihood development should be taken out of philanthropic financing and grant financing and short-term ways of actually supporting the communities on the ground that actually deliver then the conservation and the restoration that we all of course need. And so what Lestari Capital does, it identifies sources of market-based demand for conservation and for restoration. Now that market-based demand is still very early stage, and so we work very closely with the corporate sector to structure it. We then identify the business case for these companies to actually be financing conservation and restoration. We structure, we develop, conceptualize, develop really from scratch because these are brand new things. The models then to raise capital, to manage capital, and to deliver capital to the ground for projects. We work very closely actually with local communities and we're in projects on the ground. So in Indonesia, Indonesia, has actually a very special and I think very progressive way, thanks to the licensing schemes as Bapak Agus mentioned, regarding the hutan desa, hutan adat. So these are community forests and traditional community forests that actually facilitate community ownership effectively and management rights over natural areas. And so we financially support these projects over the long term. So our model is to finance them over 25 years, again, to get away from short-term financing. So actually really allow the communities to work in partnership with us and in partnership with local supporters, whether it's local government or local project operators, NGOs and so on, sometimes even companies. To actually really think about, okay, well, how do we plan for the future? How do we plan for permanence? And so the financing that goes to these projects is really there to deliver the impact. So the return is the impact. The return is the conservation, the restoration, and the livelihoods. And so if you ask us, what is the importance of local communities in this model? Well, they are the ultimate partners, right? They're not just the beneficiaries. There's a lot of talk about the difference between a partner and a beneficiary. And we really see the communities as well as the government as a partner in this and really trying to work how we can collaborate together to scale this, because that's the important part of this. There are, Bapak Jokowi has a ambition of 12 million hectares, for example, of community forest areas. And so how do we get to that and make sure that actually this delivers robustly, it delivers for the communities, but it also delivers, for Indonesia as well. And so that's really where our focus is, to try to work in collaboration to deliver that.
Yeah, no, thank you, Michael. So I think fascinating. I think you mentioned a couple of things. One is that Lestari Capital actively develop market demands to this conservation outcomes, right? That allow for scalable investment into forest. I think it's very innovative, right? And secondly, Indonesia, I think worth highlighting that the government policies around community forests has allowed this model to work in Indonesia, and when with a community at the heart, right? And you mentioned the community is not the beneficiaries but the partner, right? Can you share more about what does it mean, right, on the ground when communities are the partners for Lestari Capital and not beneficiary? Can you share a little bit so that people know how to operationalize that and can adopt that as well?
Thank you. Yes, I mean, what I can do is I can maybe start at the beginning, and I think where the model is right now, and where I would like to see that the models evolve and develop further. So that we're not self-congratulating on the panel the whole time, but actually talk a little bit about the challenges and maybe how we can work to solve them. So at the moment, the financing that we provide goes to the community in a number of ways. We support, obviously, local employment, through, for example, things like forest protection, biodiversity monitoring, and so on and so forth. But actually, the Hutan Desa model is really centered around community livelihoods. And so how do we support the community livelihood development itself, right? And so this could be through financing of specific business units that are part of that village model. This could be all development of alternative livelihood, whether they are from ecotourism, but usually actually what we find is that development of non-timber forest products and actually allowing them to have the value add, not just taking the non-timber forest products in its raw form, but then actually value adding to them as well, and creating market access to to international markets and local markets where those goods could be sold. So that's really at the very basic level. Now I think what we really need to do is as the market, for example, on nature credits, on other forms of credit, payments for ecosystem services is starting to evolve and develop, is to start to really think, okay, well, what could the benefit sharing mechanisms be that actually, number one, work in the fact that it's still a very early market, right? How best those benefits can be shared with the local community, especially if prices might fluctuate as well, and so how do you create that stability? What is the minimum that you would need to actually do in order to actually protect, kind of buffer the community from such market fluctuations? We don't work on that model yet, but we see that is where things are heading. So actually, before that happens, you really need to start to think about the benefit sharing models. Is it direct payments to communities? Is it in other forms of payment systems and so on? And so I think that's something that we really need to kind of explore. And I'm really happy to look for partnerships in order to actually do that and to do this at scale. And the other thing I think that is important is that if we're talking about 5, 10, 15, 20 years, is really to actually start to think about, okay, how do we increase the capacity to develop the livelihood plans in the first place? That is one significant gap that we see, is that actually the livelihood plans are usually not well developed. They're not well developed in terms of actually having the vision of 10, 15, 20 years. And so things will change. And of course, if the livelihood demands change, the population increases, and that isn't built into the models of how the livelihood plans are developed, then that puts the whole thing at risk, of course, right? So I think there's a major amount of capacity building that needs to happen. And I think, working with local universities, working with project operators that are doing things well, and scaling that up for the future, that's a 5-year target, right, that you need to do. And then the last thing that I think I would say is that it's also important to start thinking about this in terms of handing over the capacity and the exit to the communities, right? So that actually the communities are no longer dependent on third parties, right, in order to be able to generate the livelihood and protect these areas, but actually that the third parties exit and it's handed over to the communities, and we don't really see that built into the models just yet. The exits aren't there, and I think we do need to actually see that, because if you're thinking about 15 years, if you haven't built in an exit for yourself, then something isn't working. And the communities need to be, as I said, the beneficiaries, but ultimately the owners and the partners in this.
Thank you, Michael. Fascinating. Round of applause for Michael. I think you mentioned, like, as a community, as a partner, the plans, the 25 years plan, it came from the community, right? As you mentioned, but with that, like looking ahead, right, there is still a gap on the capability side. So we need to make sure the community, 25 years is a long time. Many things might change. The need might change. We need to make sure, we need to anticipate those change and therefore invest in capability building for the community so that they can be more independent. So the existing solution alone is not enough. Do you want to add anything more about what has been successful? You mentioned that it it is still very early stage, right? A lot to learn, right? But, you know, looking back, based on your experience, what are the key success factor or learnings that you find useful and can be helpful for the audience and other panelists as they try to scale working with the communities?
I mean, as you know, Papwira, ask me about these things, and I'd be very happy to romanticize about all of the stuff that we're doing on the demand side. For Lestari Capital is very much the innovation and everything that we do on the demand side is really where our innovation and our contribution, I think, comes to. I think we have been relatively successful in creating that market, structuring that market, and working with global companies in actually generating finance at scale. I think there is an important aspect to this. Again, future kind of innovation is how do we make sure that the project typologies are the right ones, because actually the demand is also changing, right? 2 months ago it's all about biodiversity. Next month it'll be all about climate, and so on. So how do you do that and kind of like future-proof it effectively, right? From those fluctuations and shifts in the demand. How do you then do this at scale? So that means, to us, it really means that you have to do it through collective action models, right? It shouldn't be about one company, one project, right? It should be about multiple companies financing multiple projects, because also from the financial side, from the delivery side, you de-risk the models that way, right? And it is a risky endeavor, right? Some of these projects are, because they are in high deforestation risk areas, for example, there is a risk, right? And so actually doing it through portfolio approaches, doing it through collective action is one way that you can then kind of attract the financing more at scale and from a larger amount of group of parties. I think on the project side of things, certainly, just going back to some of the things that I said, I think it is about scale, it is about capacity building, it is about kind of unblocking some of the other challenges that we face, with regards to also just a capacity to deliver, right? And so that, I think, also in itself will then attract more demand. Once you're able to show a really stronger pipeline of projects, it will attract more demand. And, for us, working in partnerships is really is really the only way forward, I think. And so, exploring how these models can be adapted, exploring where the innovation comes from, really being very honest and blunt about the challenges. There are many, many challenges. And, thinking through the potential pathways to resolving them, is there. On our side, a key thing is to attract more demand, demonstrate how this can work together with others, but then attracting more demand, focusing on a wider range of projects as well, inside and outside value chains, I think is really important. One thing that I would say is that, unfortunately, there is a movement, through some initiatives that start to focus in really concretely on the supply chain and the value chain, and emission removals and reductions within production areas, and that has kind of distracted the market a little bit from actually what we also need to be doing at scale is to finance currently intact standing forests that are outside of supply chains, and really demonstrate to those areas which still are undisturbed or lightly disturbed that there are alternative development models out there, especially to the communities, that the conversion is not the only pathway. And so I think that's actually, I sort of go against the demand in this regard, but I'm, as Lestari, really pushing that actually we need to be financing more standing forest. And, there's a lot of noise, I think, that we need to cut through on this topic.
Thank you, Michael. Terima kasih banyak. So, I think I would love to go to Daniel first, if I may. Daniel, thank you for being with us today, right? You're working for Tropenpaus, and Tropenpaus working with the community since almost 40 years ago. I was very amazed. right? And you focus on Ghana, right? I think a lot of the gentlemen here, companies are talking about communities being at the heart of their businesses, right? Needs to be just and equitable, right? Being, from your end, right? How would you define or describe what is just and equitable for the communities when collaborating with businesses?
Thank you. Um, for us, Tropimbos has been at the center of sort of interfacing between companies, government, and the communities. And for us, the forest is about the community. You cannot deal with the forest separately from the communities. And what communities are looking for? Communities are not looking for money. They are not looking for physical things. Some communities' soul are bonded in the forest. You go to a lot of the communities that we work in. There is a community in Ghana that has a sacred grove. Now, everything, the soul of the community sits in the forest. So the reverence level to which this community gives to the forest, it's not about livelihood. It's not about the physical money. So distinguishing forest from the community for me and Tropimbos would be very difficult. And that is why our approach to forest management is people-centered. We are looking at how do we build an inclusive system where communities, companies, government are functioning in a very perfect and balanced manner. So that communities are not worse off, companies are not worse off by their investments, and companies and governments are not also worse off in terms of whatever revenue they are getting from forests, whether it be a production forest or pure conservation forest. So for us, we believe in inclusive participation, and that is why for the past 20 years in Ghana, our approaches, whether from the project perspective, we drive this through pure community-led restoration. When I say community-led restoration, it is restoration that is being led by the communities. We provide them technical capacity, some financial capacity, then the community lead the restoration themselves. We have also pioneered some innovations in the past that is looking at promoting inclusivity, promoting individual businesses through the small-scale artisanal milling. A lot of our project has led to certain policy reforms that is looking to bring all small-scale artisanal milling into the fray. And if you go to Ghana today, a lot of the policies on small-scale artisanal millings were things that were being pioneered by Tropimbos. We have led at the policy level. One recently, a law was passed, the LI 2254. This was one of the pioneering laws, an LI that Tropimbos led, galvanizing CSOs together and trying to bring communities at the forefront and making sure that communities are well represented in terms of what they do, so that they have the right to the natural resources that is within their environment. Beyond that, we have incubator programs. At the moment, Tropimbos is implementing one of the most novel projects, what we call Mobilizing More for the Climate. We are bringing community businesses together, training them on how to embrace the environment, how to look at the environment not just as a resource, but look at it from community perspective, from economic perspective, and social perspective. So we are promoting a lot of green businesses. Today, we are pioneering the first of its kind, organic cocoa production. We all know Ghana is the second largest cocoa producer in the world. So we want to see how can we move towards another dimension where cocoa is produced organically without disturbing the environment. We are pioneering this with one of the largest organic cocoa producer, Yaira Global. We are also trying to see what other value chains can we add from the cocoa. So we've started some pilot, how we are going to use cocoa hacks into making that into charcoal briquettes. galvanizing all this support from communities. These are community businesses. We are not bringing business individuals from anywhere, but within the communities that we work. So for us, communities are at the centerpiece of the forest. You simply cannot manage the forest without communities. We have pioneered community-led independent forest monitoring, where we have empowered communities with usable mobile phones and a platform where communities can report infractions to the forest authorities without even being noticed. These are all pioneering things that Tropimos has done over the years. And we continue to catalyze on every single community infrastructure to make sure that communities are well represented when it comes to forest management. And that is the approach we have adopted over the years.
No, thank you so much, Daniel. And it's great to hear, right? There is a consistency in terms of community-led, as explained by you, right, in Ghana, and as well as Pa Onte in Indonesia, right? It's great to hear, and I think it's also very refreshing to hear that what you just mentioned, right? For the community, it's not only about financials. It goes beyond, the connection goes beyond financials and materials benefit, right? The culture, their soul is there, right? So thank you for reminding us about that as well. And, can you share, while you've been working on the pioneering kind of approach with community-led, right? What do you think are the challenges for us now, right, governments, businesses, to implement that approach in a large scale? And what do you think needs to be in place so that we can implement community-led conservations at scale as you just described? Please.
I think that the biggest threat today in Ghana is illegal mining. The crave for gold is one that is destroying a lot of community initiatives, a lot of community sacred groves, a lot of forest reserves are being invaded. And the manner in which we are doing it is not very sustainable. Beyond that, communities will continue to need some capacities. I mean, communities might have some indigenous knowledge. Let us not downplay the indigenous knowledge within the communities, because these community guys have been managing these forests for several years using indigenous approaches. But of course, there are some scientific approaches that these communities will need to learn. And that is why we introduced the independent forest monitoring. That space where you can use a simple mobile phone to monitor an infraction. You just take pictures, and the person who reports that infraction cannot be tracked. And it lies within the ambit of the forest authorities to act. So if you ask me, what are the prevailing challenges? As we speak, the crave for gold is the #1 challenge. And of course, there are several policies that have been enacted, but the policy environment needs to sanitize. As we speak, there's a new law, an LI 2462, that is looking to open up certain concessions within the forest space where individual companies can have access to explore certain forests by a certain percentage. From our point, from the organizational point and CSO front, we think that it is very inimical. So we need to streamline our policy environment. We simply cannot allow certain spaces and certain clauses within our constitutions to push our forests to the bricks. And of course, if you look at the Forest Authority, one of the biggest challenges they are faced with is logistics. They are not able to patrol through all these forests. Imagine one concession, a forest concession, just one is in excess of 300 hectares. And you have several of them. You have probably, within a particular compartment, you can have up to 300 compartments. And you have only one forest buyer to patrol all these areas. So they will need some infrastructure, some logistics, drones that can assist in monitoring all these areas. And of course, we should start looking at the communities as partners. Look, as I said earlier on, communities are not looking for finance. They are not looking for material things. Some communities' soul are connected to the forest. Let's look at the cultural dynamics. Let us not be influenced by just finance. The quest to have money from gold the quest to have money from lithium, the quest to have money from bauxite. That shouldn't define how we manage our forests. Communities are open for dialogue. They are open for dialogue. And we believe that, look, let's together pioneer an integrated approach that is looking at right base, that is looking at inclusivity, where we can bring all the economic and social dimensions so that together we can foster a healthy forest. Challenges persist. There are challenges, but we can overcome them within the limited resources that we have if we work collaboratively.
Thank you, Daniel. Round of applause. I'm personally very energized with your narrative. Also really recognizing that I think there's consistent pressure about resources beneath the forest, right? There's a consistent pressure around that. So our ability to kind of recognize their value for the forest beyond that, right? It's very critical, and have government support to protect that. And the capability building as well as has been kind of mentioned by the other panelists is also important, constantly to empower the community so that they can work as a partner, right? It's also important. Thank you so much for sharing. If I can go next to you, Henrietta, right? And thank you for being with us. I think your position is quite unique, right? In a way that you are representing Partnership for Forests in West and Central Africa. It is an incubator. Maybe you can start by sharing kind of your role, and also kind of what is Partnership for Forests in West Central Africa to the audience, so that we can start with the context, please.
Great. Thanks, Wodha. So Partnership for Forests is an 8-year program. It's actually a global program in East Africa, Southeast Asia, of which I'm here, and then Latin America, and I'm in the West and Central Africa office, being funded by the Foreign Commonwealth Development Organization, basically. And for us at P4F West and Central Africa, our aim is to halt deforestation and also catalyze investment in forest and sustainable land use. We work across quite a large portfolio, looking at large businesses, agro-businesses in cocoa, timber, oil palm, and also medium, and also the smallholder or the cooperatives. And that's how unique the program in West and Central Africa is. But we focus on three main strategic objectives in implementing our business. And that's the first being looking at the Produce Protect scheme, where we're working with oil palm and cocoa companies, where they are able to support smallholders, improve their production, protect nearby forests, and also catalyze investment and improve the incomes of the communities where they work. The second stream of strategy where we work is also looking at landscape restoration, like working with Form International in restoring gazetted areas in Ghana. And also the third strategic area is looking at landscape management in the long term, basically. So that's how our portfolio works. But then in incubating businesses, we have three main things that we really look at in incubating these businesses that we work with. The first being funding, which is coming from FCDO. We also look at technical assistance, supporting these businesses to be able to improve their business model, and also support the communities where they work, improve their production sustainably, protect forests in that regard. And also we're looking at linking these businesses to investment as well. And one unique part of our business models or incubation is the fact that we build in, that some of the lessons we've learned in is to build in exit strategies for this business. And I'll take, for example, in Cameroon, we've worked with Eco Trading, which was a very small company. They are working with the Baka people, and I'm sure most of you have heard of the Baka people, also called the Pygmies. And these people, they collect NTFPs, and we've been able to support this business. Apart from them harvesting, they've added value to their businesses by building an infrastructure or logistics for a warehouse for them to be able to process these NTFPs that they collect. So basically, that's what P4F we've done in West and Central Africa. That's what we do.
Yep. Thank you. And on the topic of working with communities, right? Can you share examples from one of the portfolio that kind of can help us understand the challenges and kind of the solutions to scaling up approaches or businesses that has the community at heart of the model.
Thanks. So communities have always been a central part of the businesses that we incubate. We cannot leave them out. As a program, being able to improve the lives of over 252,000 people, that's very phenomenal for us as a program. And therefore, we do not downplay communities. And that's why in our portfolio, we even work with smallholder cooperatives in cocoa, in oil palm, and also in NTFPs. Now, these farmers or these smallholders or communities face quite a number of challenges, but I'll dwell on quite a few of them. First is for them to be able to access funding as a cooperative. Sometimes impact investors, the funding is very short. You have 1 year, 2 years to be able to implement this. And if you're talking about forest and landscape, it's a long-term thing. It's not a short-term thing. So this is the challenge that these smallholders, they face. And for us as a program, looking forward, we're looking at collaboration where we can have long-term funding, reliable sources of funding for communities, for smallholders, for cooperatives that we are working with in these areas or in these supply chains. The other challenge that they face is the fact that if you look at the landscape where they are working, it's quite diverse. Incubating businesses comes with public and private partnerships. These communities cannot do them alone. Engaging stakeholders, it's a long-term thing. And therefore, we really look at the management of these stakeholders at play. And I'm happy Daniel talked about they not only need the financials. These communities have their souls tied to this forest where they work. And aside from funding, they are looking at how their lives will be better. Not today, not tomorrow, but forever. And they do not take these forests for granted. But of course, they will need funding to be able to do what they do and to be able to protect it sustainably. Another challenge I would look at in terms of, for example, where we are working in Cameroon, is the fact that we really need to build capacities of these farmers. For donor funders that are giving funding to these smallholder cooperatives, the due diligence processes that farmers or cooperatives have to go through, sometimes they are unable to meet it and therefore they are unable to access these. And this makes it difficult. So for us as a program, we are looking at how can impact investors make it more flexible for communities, for smallholders to be able to access funding. And in doing so, you are able to build their capacities to be able to enhance the business that they are doing. So these are the challenges I would want to dwell on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you highlighted again, right, the importance of, in order for community to be a partner, they need to have capabilities again, right? But you also highlighted empowering them not only by building their capability, but also giving them access to financings, right? So that they can be more independent and the process takes time, right? Since you've been incubating, I think Partnership Forest has been around for about 7 years, right? So it is a long-term process. So intervention in this type of effort needs to have a long-term view, which is echo as well as Michael just mentioned earlier, right? Thank you so much, Henrietta. Going to you. Thank you so much, Felipe, for waiting. Do you want to stand up a little bit just to stretch if you need? Right? And thank you everyone for still being with us today. No, I think it's really good. Felipe, apa kabar? I'm testing your bahasa because I know you've been to Indonesia for a little bit, right?
So, terima kasih.
Okay.
Gado, gado, me gusta.
Okay. So round of applause for best effort attempt by Felipe to speak bahasa. Right. It's really thank you and gado-gado. I think we need to set the bar higher.
I'm vegetarian, so
okay.
I mostly eat gado-gado there.
Okay. Okay. Well, we can work on that as well. Felipe, I think, last time we met, I think you shared a bit about Renature, but now you are representing the land banking group, right? I think my understanding is that land banking group helps, businesses and individual invest in nature, right? Can you start by sharing the context so that we understand what you do at Land Banking Book? Please, over to you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for the invitation. It's great to share the panel with these amazing people here after a year when we were in Egypt as well, sharing here. Before I start giving an introduction, I would like to ask all of you who had a coffee this morning today already. Please raise your hand. Okay, so that's not so many people, but still. You know, why do I ask this? Because probably the coffee that you had drink compared to the one that the other person had drink comes from a different country, comes from a different community or a farmer. Possibly one has a more impact on nature than the other. And, you know, so where is the price of the coffee being measured by the impact we're having in nature? So probably not. We probably paid 15 to 20 UAE in the coffee today. But that's because nature is not being accounted for the price of everything we drink, eat, and wear, like the cotton, for instance, that we're wearing. So what we at Land Banking are doing is basically quantifying the environmental outcomes of every land use on Earth, mostly on the global south, so that we can convert these environmental outcomes into nature investments. So companies that needs to comply with ESG reporting, but also banks, insurances, and mostly the agri-food sector that needs to reinvest in their own supply chain to de-risk their portfolio, because they know that now every single commodity crop across the globe is being impacted by climate change. For instance, in Brazil, where I come from, we had 20% yield decrease in coffee because of climate and intensive frost. So how can we bear with, you know, the risks we're having in land use and in food production, and you know, we're not bearing with these costs, and farmers and communities, they are being pressured. You know, they work 12 to 16 hours a day to give us 3 meals every single day, and we are not giving value for all the ecosystem benefits they're creating for nature. So at Land Banking, what we're doing is basically quantifying this. We get every polygon of farmers' land use through a technology we developed called Landler to track all environmental outcomes. So from carbon to biodiversity to water and soil health, so nutrition of soil. And we turn that into potential natural capital accounts so that we can make transactions with companies that are interested in reinvesting in their own supply chain or investment portfolio. So just to give an example, in Brazil, we're working with some coffee growers. One of our partners is Nespresso, where we're developing a project with a coffee grower, 1,200 farmers, from smallholders to large farmers, where all these farmers, they depend on bees. We never talk about biodiversity, but bees is actually responsible for 4 out of the 12 staple crops we eat globally. And so bees is very key for food security. And coffee farmers, they need the bees to pollinate their flowers, to have a good quality and yields of coffee. And what we're doing is that we are quantifying through bioacoustics and satellite imagery the amount of bees in that particular land. Bioacoustics, for those of you who doesn't know, is like a equipment that you install in the land, in the coffee plant, for instance, and then you can track the sound of biodiversity. So you can track the sound of birds, bees, insects, and so on. And by getting that number of increase on amount of bees in the land, we can convert that into a specific amount of euros that we can reward those coffee growers for increasing the amount of bees pollinations in the land. So, you know, we can go beyond carbon. The carbon markets is very, you know, contradictory right now. And there is much more than carbon. There's biodiversity, there's water holding capacity in soil. There is nutritional value of the soil. You know, in Brazil we have 80 million hectares degraded already because of degraded pasture. So rewarding farmers for their ecological outcomes will be key for us to drive change and put a price in everything we wear, we drink and eat. So the true cost of everything we're consuming needs to be accounted for nature's impact. So we recently launched a manifesto here at COP called Nature Equity Manifesto that is basically push companies to put nature in their balance sheet, so they can start quantifying their risks in climate resilience in their sourcing of materials, so that we can change how we are looking at nature, because nature has a huge value, and communities and farmers, they are our ecosystem engineers. They are the ones who is managing nature to stay healthy. People don't deforest because they want to take the forest away, but they do because they want to live from it. So if we can make like capital transactions for restoring nature, I think it's a very effective way for us to, ensure food security for our global population.
Thank you, Felipe. Thank you so much. And I think I like it resonates very well with what Daniel just mentioned earlier, right? There is more to nature than just gold underneath that forest, right? And the key to protecting nature is, you're starting what your organization is doing is to give a value of that ecosystem services, right? Carbon is something that we're familiar, but bees, right? I mean, bees, water, and it's I think looking forward to hear kind of what type of value you can put around natures beyond what we know today. But going back to the topic we have today, that is communities, right? How do you put communities in the parameters when you evaluating the value of nature, and when do you engage them, right? Because I understand you mentioned earlier, like you look at polygon by polygon. I would assume you're using a technology approach to assess the value. So where does community sit in your approach in evaluating nature?
As everyone says here, communities is at the center of every decision making that we can establish. Coming from Brazil, when I was 17, I went to the Amazon rainforest from the south of Brazil by car with some friends to get to see the real biodiverse of biomes we have in Brazil. When I arrived in the Amazon, I spent some time with indigenous communities, and I got to learn the wisdom they have on managing the forest and our natural ecosystems. And I was amazed by the knowledge and the wisdom they have on protecting such environments, and how they interact with nature. As you said, they are not interested in money. Of course, it's part of the process for them to obtain what they also want, but they just want to have a healthy life and live with the forest in harmony, and nobody going there to extract their natural resource from mining or logging activities. So based on that, we try to acquaint the indigenous knowledge as much as possible to use that in terms of like making the transactions with the natural capital. So companies that are interested in doing insetting of their nature impacts, we always engage with communities to understand what is the needs for us to reward them. Because sometimes they think, hey, I have a really water issue here that I would like to solve. So then we put more priority around the water kind of holding capacity as a topic compared to, for example, carbon. Of course, they are all interconnected, but we try to get a much more in-out listening with the communities to understand how we can kind of use that for the negotiations around the ecological outcomes transactions. Yeah.
Thank you. So really look to their knowledge to understand, what is it value, how do they value nature, right? And use that as a way you evaluate in your parameters the value of that nature. So thank you so much. I think we only have like 5 more minutes. We've covered all the panelists. Thank you for all the panelists. It's great to have this conversation with every one of you. I think I will turn to the floor if we can take a couple of questions, right? One question, please. Pak and there's Patara. Please, I think you can use my mic.
Okay, thank you. My name is Arta from Indonesia. So I'm really interested on Felipe talk about these price findings, yeah, and you find it in B, and that's really interesting. But that's really based on the commodity, right? Is it able to be put in a more wider landscape? Because some communities might not really have a large scale product, or they're not really connected yet to a bigger supply chain, because like you said, like the piece accounted for a supply chain for coffee, that must be a quite good coffee supply chain, yeah. A cotton and others. So for a community that is not there yet, is there a possibility for this price funding to be developed for other things? And of course, second question would be, when you have that with the bees, how does the business respond it? Are they like keen? Are they became more successful into that? I think this is really interesting for exercise in Indonesia. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for your question. Yeah, indeed. So conservation is also part of the polygons that we can track the environmental outcomes. But we're still working on the technology, so it's not finalized yet, and still, improving day by day. But conservation with communities is also a way to reward. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a commodity crop. We're talking about also forest crops. So for example, in the Amazon, we have acai, but then we also have cocoa, rubber, and so on. These are all native to the Amazon. And we're also working with African parks in Africa, where they are also going to integrate natural capital for rewarding communities. So conservation is still something that we're working on, new, but very excited to develop something like this also across Indonesia, Southeast Asia. And about the businesses, it's still very new, right? Like when you talk about biodiversity credits and, like water holding capacity, nutrition of soil. So this is still very unfamiliar in rewarding schemes for, to give capital and investments. But it's starting to get more traction. We see a lot of like luxury and fashion brands interested in doing things related to biodiversity, for example. So I think that it's still new, but it's also, they all recognize that it's very important to look at nature as a holistic kind of impact and not only at carbon. So this is changing a lot. I'm quite positive that by COP30 in Brazil in 2 years from now, we'll see a lot of new nature investments so that communities and farmers, they can see the value even more on what they are doing. Because I don't know how is it in Indonesia and Africa, but like in Brazil, we have a big problem with succession in farms. A lot of next generation of farmers, they're moving to cities because they don't get enough passion or incentives to continue. And it's very critical that we can keep the agriculture culture, because this is the roots of who we are. Everything we do today, it thanks to the history of agriculture. So I really hope that by COP30 in Brazil, where I hope to see all of you there, we can accomplish some things by then.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I think with that questions, I would like to conclude this panel discussions, right? Thank you so much, Indica, for hosting, and thank you for the panelists for sharing your knowledge here, right? Really, I think we learned so much, right? We learned that, when we try to think about working with communities, we really need to learn how the communities really appreciate nature, as you mentioned, right? So we need to really understand how they look at nature, and that will allow us to value nature better, and how we interpret how we work better with them, as shared by everyone. At the moment, the solution is very important. Some of them are still kind of small scale, but it's very important to really work together fast to scale the solutions, right? We need to work now to act together, to work with community to scale this this kind of approach. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for staying with us.